Swati Nakshatra, cognitive subconscious patterns, audio, visual, and kinesthetic. Some individuals process the world through auditory channels, thinking in sound, speech, or rhythm. Others rely on visual patterns, absorbing through form, imagery, or spatial awareness. And some are deeply kinesthetic, feeling and learning through movement, sensation, and emotional resonance. Swati Nakshatra, ruled by Rahu, disruption, curiosity, expansion, and associated with Vayu, the god of wind, tends to blend all three styles, but leans most naturally toward auditory and kinesthetic processing. These natives are driven by movement, sound, and subtle vibration. They're perceptive, adaptable, and often absorb experience through language, motion, and the energetic undercurrent of what's happening. Their dominant processing style depends on planetary placements in the 1st, 3rd, 5th, and 10th houses, where their thinking, expression, and public interaction take form. If Rahu is in the 1st or 3rd house, the cognitive style is auditory-dominant but untraditional. These individuals are drawn to sound, language, tone, and even breath or wind-like qualities. In Swati, Rahu amplifies mental restlessness. They're constantly thinking, mimicking, or scripting conversations in their mind. If Rahu is in the 10th, their auditory acuity becomes public. They may be speakers, singers, persuasive communicators, or figures who use voice, tone, or frequency to hold attention. If Mercury is in the 3rd or 10th house, auditory processing becomes sharper and more refined. These natives think in words, logic, and fast, fluid thought. In Swati, Mercury's placement supports adaptive language and clever articulation. They absorb information by hearing it, explaining it, or repeating it. If in the 10th, this may turn into a career strength. They become wordsmiths, negotiators, or adaptable thinkers who shift tone with their environment. If Moon is in the 1st or 4th house, the processing style is kinesthetic and emotional. These individuals absorb energy, emotion, and information through the body, through what feels right. In Swati, the moon adds inner sensitivity to the wind-like nature. They ride energetic currents, often picking up on the emotional tone of a space before anyone speaks. If Moon is in the 10th, this kinesthetic awareness becomes socially functional. They can intuit when to act, speak, or shift based on the energetic feel of the room or audience. If Venus or Jupiter is in the 5th or 9th house, the processing style leans toward visual. These individuals process through symbols, aesthetic flow, or imaginative imagery. In Swati, Venus adds grace to cognition. They may learn best through visuals that carry beauty or pattern. Jupiter expands this into conceptual visuals, mapping large ideas through diagrams, mental pictures, or archetypal understanding. If in the 10th, this visual intelligence becomes part of their public presence, whether through art, fashion, design, or storytelling. If Ketu is in the 5th or 1st, the processing becomes symbolic and nonlinear. These natives may just know without structured explanation, receiving insight through flashes, dreams, or spiritual impressions. In Swati, this can feel like being swept by invisible winds of intuition. They sense truths, but may not immediately understand them. If Ketu is in the 10th, they may become subtle influencers or behind-the-scenes thinkers who operate through instinct more than method. Swati's cognitive nature is inherently adaptive, airy, and receptive. It learns best when free to move, speak, question, and change. Their evolution lies in grounding their flexibility with focus, learning when to drift and when to direct. When balanced, Swati becomes a master of subtle perception, quick thinking, emotionally attuned, and able to translate movement of thought, feeling, or sound into insight, healing, or influence. Swati Nakshatra, motivation direction, towards versus away from. Some individuals are driven towards something, chasing goals, freedom, experiences, and growth. Others are motivated away from discomfort, avoiding conflict, restriction, or emotional overwhelm. Swati Nakshatra, ruled by Rahu, desire, expansion, and symbolized by the wind, strongly leans toward a towards motivation style. These natives are seekers by nature, restless, curious, and often propelled by a desire to explore, improve, or establish independence. However, their airy, destabilizing energy can also trigger away from motivation, especially when they feel unanchored, overwhelmed, or judged. Their direction of motivation often depends on planetary placements in the 1st, 3rd, 6th, or 10th houses. where effort, expression, and public movement come into play. If Rahu is in the first or third house, motivation is intensely towards, but with a twist. These individuals want to move, speak, grow, and become. In Swati, Rahu drives an urge for transformation and recognition. They are pulled toward change, often seeking to reinvent themselves or break free from the past. If Rahu is in the 10th, this motivation becomes publicly visible. They chase status, career elevation, or influence, though they may struggle with grounding their ambition in lasting structure. If Mercury is in the 3rd or 10th house, the motivation is towards, expressed through learning, expression, or problem solving. These natives are energized by knowledge, skill, or intellectual stimulation. In Swati, Mercury supports mental exploration. They pursue clarity, communication, or mastery of words. If in the 10th, they're motivated to succeed through intellect, language, or adaptability, often in writing, business, or teaching roles. If Moon is in the 4th or 6th house, the motivation can shift away from, especially emotionally. These individuals act to avoid instability, emotional overwhelm, or inner discomfort. In Swati, the Moon adds sensitivity to an already mobile nakshatra. They may drift or withdraw when feelings become too turbulent. If Moon is in the 10th, they often appear poised, but their actions are shaped by an internal need to feel emotionally safe or respected. If Saturn is in the 6th or 10th house, the motivation becomes away from, grounded in duty, control, and fear of failure. These natives are cautious. They act to prevent chaos, criticism, or instability. In Swati, Saturn slows the wind. It brings structure to their scatter, making them more methodical and service-oriented. If in the 10th, they rise through discipline, but their drive is often fueled by what they don't want to experience again: instability, failure, or powerlessness. If Jupiter is in the 1st or 9th house, the motivation is strongly towards, guided by vision, belief, or wisdom. These individuals seek truth, growth, or impact beyond the material. In Swati, Jupiter gives direction to Rahu's expansion. They are motivated to pursue meaning, not just movement. If in the 10th, their ambition becomes philosophical. They rise through teaching, leadership, or spiritual insight, often motivated by the desire to contribute something lasting. Swati's core motivation is to move freely, express fully, and grow beyond limits. Their challenge lies in grounding their forward drive so it doesn't scatter or flee. When too anchored in fear, they withdraw or over-adapt. When too impulsive, they chase without aim. Their evolution lies in knowing when to move toward their next truth and when to pause and integrate what they're running from. When balanced, Swati becomes the free-moving force that changes lives not by pushing or escaping, but by arriving with purpose, grace, and wind-carried wisdom. Swati Nakshatra. Attention direction, self or others. Some individuals focus primarily on the self, monitoring their inner world, thoughts, emotions, and personal evolution. Others are naturally tuned into others, constantly scanning the environment, tracking social cues, and adjusting to external feedback. Swati Nakshatra, ruled by Rahu, amplification, desire, and associated with Vayu, the god of wind, tends to lean toward an others-oriented attention style. These natives are socially responsive, highly adaptable, and often shape-shift in response to how they're perceived. However, their inner restlessness and desire for autonomy often bring them back to self, especially when overstimulated or misaligned. Whether their attention is more internally focused or externally reactive depends on planetary placements in the 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th houses, where identity, emotional balance, and relational dynamics unfold. If Rahu is in the 1st or 3rd house, attention is heavily self-directed, but often through an external mirror. These natives are hyper-aware of their image, progress, and personal narrative. In Swati, Rahu amplifies this, creating a restless internal loop of self-monitoring, self-editing, or self-improvement. If Rahu is in the 10th, this becomes publicly visible. They may obsess over how they are seen, constantly adjusting their outer presence to match inner ambition or outer expectation. If Moon is in the 4th or 7th house, attention leans toward others, especially in emotional and relational contexts. These individuals are sensitive to mood shifts and interpersonal harmony. In Swati, the Moon adds emotional adaptability. They feel what others feel, often to the point of losing their center. If Moon is in the 10th, they direct this relational focus outward. They track social dynamics, emotional tone in professional settings, and often adjust to maintain external peace or approval. If Mercury is in the third or 10th house, attention is others-focused in a mental or communicative sense. These natives are quick thinkers who watch how others speak, move, and respond. In Swati, Mercury adds social agility. They are often great listeners, mimics, or negotiators, attuned to tone, language, and timing. If Mercury is in the 10th, this creates a public persona that is intelligent, diplomatic, and adaptable, often shaped by how others respond to their ideas. If Saturn is in the 6th or 10th house, attention becomes externally focused through duty. These individuals are highly aware of expectations, systems, and authority. In Swati, Saturn adds control. They may suppress inner needs in favor of what others require or expect. If in the 10th, their attention is tied to reputation, they may overwork or overadapt to maintain status or avoid failure, often placing responsibility above self-care. If Jupiter is in the 1st or 9th house, attention leans inward toward values, beliefs, and personal wisdom. These individuals consult their inner truth before reacting to others. In Swati, Jupiter helps ground Rahu's social scatter. They act not just to please, but to stay aligned with meaning. If in the 10th, they lead with vision. They see others, but don't lose themselves in the process. Swati's gift is its sensitive social radar, but its challenge is staying anchored in self while interacting with the world. These natives often look outward first, adjusting to maintain harmony or relevance, but must learn when to turn attention inward and honor their own emotional wind patterns. When balanced, Swati becomes the conscious wind, moving through others' worlds without being swept away, centered in self even as they connect, adapt, and flow. Swati Nakshatra, understanding chunk size, big or little. Some individuals process life in big chunks, absorbing broad patterns, abstract ideas, and overarching truths. Others prefer little chunks, focusing on details, sequences, and step-by-step logic. Swati Nakshatra, ruled by expansion, divergence, and associated with Vayu, the god of wind, leans toward a big chunk style of understanding. These natives are naturally conceptual thinkers, absorbing ideas holistically, intuitively grasping themes, and making mental leaps without needing every step defined. However, their airy and ungrounded nature can scatter this big picture awareness unless anchored by planets that encourage focus and follow-through. Planetary placements in the 1st, 3rd, 5th, and 10th houses reveal how they organize information, whether through sweeping vision or detailed breakdown. If Rahu is in the 1st or 9th house, the native's processing is intensely big chunk and often visionary. These individuals are fascinated by large ideas, cultural systems, or transformative paths. In Swati, Rahu heightens curiosity. They want to grasp everything at once, often learning through immersion rather than structure. If Rahu is in the 10th, their learning becomes publicly driven. They may rise through bold, non-traditional thinking, often skipping steps others consider essential. If Mercury is in the 3rd or 6th house, the processing style shifts toward little chunk. These individuals are mentally agile, thriving on logic, lists, and structure. In Swati, Mercury grounds Rahu's expansiveness. They learn through communication, categorization, and repetition. If Mercury is in the 10th, they gain respect through practical intelligence, offering precise advice, clear speech, or systems thinking in their work. If Moon is in the 4th or 5th house, the native tends to absorb in layers, often starting with intuition before sorting through specifics. In Swati, the Moon adds emotional pacing. They process what feels right and may return to content repeatedly, learning through mood and memory. If Moon is in the 10th, this translates into emotional intelligence in public. They understand context and tone, even if they don't always track every detail. If Saturn is in the 6th or 10th house, the understanding style becomes little chunk by discipline. These natives prefer building knowledge piece by piece, often through effort, trial, and repetition. In Swati, Saturn can anchor Rahu's restless mind. They may start broad, but are forced to slow down and learn the foundational parts. If in the 10th, this gives them practical mastery. They are respected for delivering well-structured, grounded work over time. If Jupiter is in the 1st or 9th house, the native's understanding becomes big chunk guided by belief or wisdom. These individuals process life thematically. They connect ideas to values, growth, and the greater whole. In Swati, Jupiter helps expand Rahu's vision with meaning. They don't just want ideas, they want purpose. If Jupiter is in the 10th, they may lead through philosophy, mentoring, or by offering inspired frameworks others can build upon. Swati's mind is fluid, fast, and spacious, naturally attuned to big picture thinking. But its growth comes through learning how to land the vision, to move from scattered insight into structured integration. When they balance their conceptual brilliance with focus and clarity, Swati natives become expansive thinkers who can navigate complexity with grace, translating winds of thought into tangible wisdom. Swati Nakshatra, frame of reference, internal or external. Some individuals operate with an internal frame of reference, trusting their inner truth, instincts, and personal reasoning. Others rely on an external frame of reference, measuring decisions based on feedback, validation, or social standards. Swati Nakshatra, ruled by Rahu, amplification, adaptation, and associated with Vayu, the god of wind, naturally leans toward an external frame of reference. These natives are highly responsive to the world around them, sensitive to how they're perceived, how others react, and what societal or relational winds are shifting. However, their life path often pushes them toward developing a stronger internal compass, learning to trust their own voice amid constant motion. Planetary placements in the 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th houses help determine whether they orient primarily through internal authority or external reflection. If Rahu is in the 1st or 7th house, the frame is strongly external. These natives are hyper-aware of others, how they appear, what is expected, and what social image they're projecting. In Swati, this creates a shape-shifting quality. They can reinvent themselves easily, but may struggle with consistency. If Rahu is in the 10th, this need for external approval or status becomes amplified. They seek to rise, but often through roles that gain admiration or visibility, rather than rooted self-assurance. If Moon is in the 4th or 7th house, the frame is emotionally externalized. These individuals tend to absorb the emotional state of others before checking in with themselves. In Swati, the moon adds empathy but also vulnerability. They're emotionally tuned in but may suppress their own needs to maintain relational harmony. If in the 10th, they manage their public expression based on others' emotional responses, adjusting tone and presence to match the social climate. If Mercury is in the 3rd or 10th house, the reference point is often external, filtered through logic and communication. These individuals process through conversation, feedback, and observation. In Swati, Mercury heightens mental adaptability. They learn quickly, but may defer to what's trending, acceptable, or validated. If in the 10th, they may build careers around adjusting to audience needs, public speaking, writing, consulting, yet still seek grounded internal values to sustain confidence. If Saturn is in the 6th or 10th house, the external reference becomes duty and structure-based. These natives are cautious and often default to rules, systems, or external expectations before acting. In Swati, Saturn anchors Rahu's wind. They resist impulsiveness, but can become overly controlled by what is correct or expected. If in the 10th, they often define success through achievement, status, or societal roles, needing to later reconnect with their deeper motivations. If Jupiter is in the 1st or 9th house, the frame of reference is internally philosophical. These individuals consult their wisdom, beliefs, or moral compass before they act. In Swati, Jupiter offers grounding to Rahu's changeability. They still move through the world, but from a place of meaning rather than impression. If in the 10th, they may become teachers or guides, valued for being steady, internally aligned, even while navigating public life. Swati's growth lies in anchoring inner truth while flowing with outer reality. These natives are wired to respond, shift, and blend, but their evolution requires them to slow down, go inward, and ask, what do I think? What do I feel? What do I want without the wind of others pushing me? When they center themselves internally, Swati becomes not just adaptable, but consciously directed, using their flexibility to move with purpose rather than pressure. Swati Nakshatra, action preference, proactive or reactive. Some individuals are naturally proactive. initiating plans, taking charge, and moving with intention. Others are more reactive, waiting to feel the energy, sensing shifts, and responding based on the flow of the moment. Swati Nakshatra, ruled by Rahu, instinctive movement, expansion, and associated with Vayu, the god of wind, leans toward a reactive action style by default. These natives are like the wind, sensitive to external conditions, adaptable, and constantly shifting their pace based on the environment. Yet under pressure or in pursuit of personal freedom or recognition, they can become hyper-proactive, making bold, fast, and even risky moves. Their action preference often depends on planetary placements in the 1st, 3rd, 6th, and 10th houses, which shape how and when they act. If Rahu is in the 1st or 3rd house, the native becomes proactively restless. These individuals push forward, chasing identity, transformation, or new experiences. In Swati, Rahu's drive creates urgency. They often act before fully processing, moved by a desire to break through limitations. If Rahu is in the 10th, this becomes public. They seek status, recognition, or career shifts with speed, though sometimes without grounding. If Moon is in the 4th or 6th house, the action style leans reactive, particularly on an emotional level. These natives respond to mood, emotional safety, or subtle relational cues. In Swati, the moon brings softness to Rahu's wind. They act when the emotional environment is stable, often holding back until they feel secure. If moon is in the 10th, this reactivity shows in public. They may adjust their timing based on emotional tone or public reception. If Mercury is in the 3rd or 10th house, the action becomes proactive through thought. These individuals plan, suggest, and adapt quickly. In Swati, Mercury refines impulsivity. They act with curiosity, analysis, and social intelligence. If in the 10th, their ability to respond intelligently and communicate quickly becomes a professional strength, they are seen as clever, persuasive, and tactically forward-moving. If Saturn is in the 6th or 10th house, the action style is deliberate and reactive, measured, strategic, and slow to initiate. These individuals resist being swept by change. They observe, calculate, and only move when the structure is sound. In Swati, Saturn helps anchor the wind. They may be cautious but steady, acting only after all risks are accounted for. If Saturn is in the 10th, this creates dependable leaders who act in response to duty, not impulse. If Mars is in the 1st or 10th house, the action becomes more proactive, infused with courage and direction. These individuals move boldly, often initiating plans without waiting for approval. In Swati, Mars gives them the power to act decisively despite Rahu's instability, but they must learn to temper haste with clarity. If in the 10th, they're seen as dynamic initiators, successful when action is aligned with higher purpose, not ego urgency. Swati's true action style is like wind through trees. Responsive, shifting, intuitive. They thrive when allowed to move at their own pace, adjusting direction as the energy around them changes. Their evolution lies in balancing their reactive brilliance with intentional momentum, knowing when to float and when to fly. When aligned, Swati becomes a graceful force of change, one that doesn't just respond to the moment, but moves with it, skillfully shaping the path ahead. Swati Nakshatra, operational style, options versus procedures. Some individuals operate best with options, preferring flexibility, adaptability, and the freedom to choose or change course. Others thrive with procedures, structured steps, established routines, and clear systems. Swati Nakshatra, ruled by Rahu, divergence, innovation, and associated with Vayu, the god of wind, strongly favors an options-based operational style. These natives value freedom in how they work, often needing space to explore, shift, and improvise. Routine can feel suffocating to them, and their creativity often flows best when they aren't boxed into rigid frameworks. However, with supportive planetary influences, they can adopt just enough structure to focus their adaptability. The dominant style depends on planetary placements in the 3rd, 6th, and 10th houses, where task execution and work rhythm unfold. If Rahu is in the 1st or 3rd house, the operational style is distinctly options-driven. These individuals move fast, think wide, and prefer to work on their own terms. In Swati, Rahu fuels a need to experiment. They dislike repetition and often thrive in fast-changing, unconventional, or entrepreneurial environments. If Rahu is in the 10th, they may resist corporate structure, forging their own path or disrupting the system in order to work with more freedom. If Mercury is in the third or sixth house, the native blends options with subtle structure. Mercury adds strategy. They still prefer choice, but can organize ideas into systems that evolve. In Swati, Mercury supports intellectual freedom. They want to explore various approaches, but will streamline if it makes things more efficient. If Mercury is in the 10th, they succeed in dynamic roles like consulting, communication, or freelance work, where structure is fluid and creativity is key. If Moon is in the 4th or 6th house, the operational style depends on emotional rhythm. These individuals prefer options, but within emotionally safe environments. In Swati, the Moon adds sensitivity. They work best when they feel emotionally light and free, often adjusting their workflow based on how the energy feels. If Moon is in the 10th, they may present as steady, but still require adaptability in their work setting to maintain internal balance. If Saturn is in the 6th or 10th house, the native becomes more procedural, but not rigidly so. Saturn adds responsibility and a need for reliable outcomes. In Swati, this creates internal tension. They want freedom, but Saturn insists on order. If Saturn is in the 10th, they may adopt routines or structures out of necessity, working in systems that allow some flexibility but demand discipline for success and sustainability. If Jupiter is in the 3rd or 9th house, the style remains options-based, but guided by values or principles. These individuals seek meaningful flexibility. They're not scattered, but intentional. In Swati, Jupiter brings wisdom to their choices. They may reject strict procedures if they feel too limiting, preferring pathways that align with growth and ethical direction. If Jupiter is in the 10th, they thrive in roles where they can mentor, guide, or explore ideas without rigid constraints. Swati's operational essence is like the wind, free-moving, curious, and ever-shifting. These natives function best when they're trusted to find their own rhythm and innovate as needed. Too much routine dulls their spirit. Too much freedom without focus scatters their energy. Their growth lies in discovering flexible frameworks that still allow them to adapt, explore, and create. When aligned, Swati becomes the strategist in motion, navigating complexity with ease and turning choice into quiet mastery. Swati Nakshatra views, general or specific. Some individuals naturally adopt a general view. They see broad patterns, abstract meanings, and conceptual truths. Others take a specific view, focused on details, distinctions, and fine-grained analysis. Swati Nakshatra, ruled by Rahu, expansion, divergence, and associated with Vayu, the god of wind, leans toward a general view. These natives are curious wanderers of thought, often absorbing large concepts, philosophies, or global perspectives with ease. They're fascinated by possibility and variation, preferring the freedom of the big picture to the confines of technical minutiae. However, their tendency to drift can be grounded by planetary placements that support specificity and structure. Whether they view life through a wide lens or through intricate focus depends on the influence of planets in the 1st, 3rd, 5th, and 10th houses. If Rahu is in the 1st or 9th house, the viewpoint is broadly general, visionary, philosophical, and even ungrounded at times. These individuals are fascinated by future possibilities, cultural ideas, or alternate paths. In Swati, Rahu brings a hunger to understand everything at once. They may skip over details in favor of meaning or vision. If Rahu is in the 10th, their career path may reflect this general view. They rise through unconventional, wide-reaching roles that value innovation, diversity, or abstract thinking. If Mercury is in the 3rd or 6th house, the view shifts toward the specific. These individuals analyze, organize, and mentally dissect what they encounter. In Swati, Mercury refines Rahu's breadth, giving the native the ability to toggle between big picture thinking and fine-tuned problem solving. If Mercury is in the 10th, they are valued for their clarity, attention to detail, and communication skills in public or professional life. If Moon is in the 4th or 5th house, the perspective becomes emotionally layered, blending general themes with specific emotional memory. In Swati, Moon adds fluidity. They may absorb both the feeling of an experience and the broader emotional pattern it belongs to. If Moon is in the 10th, they may project an emotionally wise, socially aware viewpoint, reading situations holistically rather than by the numbers. If Saturn is in the 6th or 10th house, the view becomes more specific and structured. These individuals are methodical, focused on what works, what's proven, and what can be sustained. In Swati, Saturn brings grounding to the windy nature. They may resist speculation in favor of practical application. If Saturn is in the 10th, their career reflects careful, step-by-step development. They're known for depth, not for abstraction. If Jupiter is in the 1st or 9th house, the general view is philosophical and value-driven. These individuals process the world through belief systems, ethical frameworks, and spiritual themes. In Swati, Jupiter channels Rahu's curiosity into meaningful context. They want to know not just what something is, but why it matters. If Jupiter is in the 10th, they often teach or guide others, operating through universal principles rather than strict analysis. Swati's natural vision is expansive, airy, and open-ended. They are at their best when they can explore multiple perspectives without being forced to commit too early to one path. Their challenge is grounding their insights, knowing when to focus in and refine what they've seen from above. When balanced, Swati becomes a flexible thinker, one who sees the whole forest but also knows how to land, observe, and shape the trees that matter most. Swati Nakshatra, work preferences, together, proximity, or solo. Some individuals thrive working together. They seek collaboration, mutual input, and shared progress. Others prefer proximity, operating independently but close enough to others for occasional interaction. And some function best solo, needing autonomy, quiet, and freedom to follow their own flow. Swati Nakshatra, ruled by Rahu, individualism expansion, and associated with Vayu, the god of wind, strongly prefers a solo or proximity work style. These natives need space, mentally, emotionally, and often physically, to breathe, explore, and decide their direction. While they're capable of adapting to groups, too much structure or constant interaction can feel confining. Their ideal work rhythm is independent, with flexible collaboration that honors their pace. Planetary placements in the 3rd, 6th, and 10th houses help reveal how their work style unfolds. If Rahu is in the 1st or 3rd house, the native almost always prefers solo work. These individuals are fiercely independent and motivated by self-driven exploration. In Swati, Rahu fuels a desire to work on their own terms. They need freedom to shift direction, chase ideas, or reinvent processes. If Rahu is in the 10th, this solo preference may be expressed publicly. They often succeed in freelance, entrepreneurial, or unconventional career paths that offer both visibility and autonomy. If Mercury is in the 3rd or 10th house, the preference leans toward proximity. These individuals enjoy exchanging ideas, collaborating occasionally, and engaging in mental sparring, but they still want control over their process. In Swati, Mercury supports mobility and adaptability. They work best when their environment is intellectually stimulating, but not overly demanding. If Mercury is in the 10th, they may thrive in communication-based roles where they are part of a team, but retain creative control. If Moon is in the 4th or 6th house, the preference depends on emotional safety. In the 4th, they lean solo, needing a calm, emotionally contained workspace. Swati's airy nature becomes more introspective here. They prefer to work where they can self-regulate without interruption. If Moon is in the 6th, proximity may be acceptable, especially in healing or service-based environments, as long as emotional energy is balanced and expectations are clear. If Saturn is in the 6th or 10th house, the native may function well in structured proximity or quiet solo roles. These individuals value boundaries, efficiency, and task clarity. In Swati, Saturn's influence adds focus and discipline to their airy tendencies. They prefer structured independence. If Saturn is in the 10th, they may hold formal roles in organizations, but usually choose positions where they can work independently within a larger system. If Jupiter is in the 3rd or 9th house, proximity is preferred in environments that support learning, teaching, or value exchange. These natives enjoy exchanging ideas with others who broaden their perspective. In Swati, Jupiter adds philosophical curiosity. They thrive when surrounded by open-minded thinkers, but not in micromanaged teams. If in the 10th, they may guide others from a distance. Coaching, mentoring, or leading through example rather than direct management. Swati's ideal workspace is open, self-directed, and lightly collaborative, where freedom meets flow. These natives crave mental oxygen and adaptability. They can show up fully only when they don't feel boxed in. Their evolution comes from learning how to collaborate without compromising independence, and how to stay rooted even as they explore. When aligned, Swati becomes a skilled solo navigator, bringing insight, movement, and fresh air into whatever work they choose to make their own. Swati Nakshatra, experience, association versus dissociation. Some individuals live through association, emotionally present, embodied, and fully engaged in their experiences. Others lean toward dissociation, stepping back to observe, detach, or shield themselves from overwhelm. Swati Nakshatra, ruled by Rahu, dispersal, separation, and associated with Vayu, the god of wind, naturally leans toward dissociation. These natives often process life through observation, drift, or intellectual detachment rather than immersion. Like wind, they're responsive but rarely pinned down, often watching themselves move through life instead of fully grounding into it. However, when emotionally secure or creatively inspired, they can shift into association, especially in conversations, learning, or aesthetic experience. Whether they stay connected or retreat into air depends on planetary placements in the 4th, 5th, and 10th houses, where emotional presence, creative flow, and public engagement unfold. If Rahu is in the 1st or 5th house, the native experiences life through a dissociated lens, often projecting an image or chasing identity without feeling fully rooted in it. In Swati, Rahu's influence makes them restless within experience. They may detach in order to reinvent, escape, or rise. If Rahu is in the 10th, this becomes externalized. They perform publicly, but may feel emotionally distant from their success, moving on as soon as the goal is reached. If Moon is in the 4th or 5th house, the experience becomes more associated, especially emotionally. These individuals absorb emotional content viscerally and process it through memory, intuition, or creativity. In Swati, Moon brings a breeze of sensitivity. They feel deeply, but may still hesitate to stay fully engaged unless the emotional environment is gentle and non-demanding. If Moon is in the 10th, they associate in public. They read emotional cues, tune into tone, and often feel the emotional weight of their professional role. If Mercury is in the 5th or 10th house, the experience leans toward mental dissociation. These individuals prefer to observe, analyze, and intellectualize before emotionally engaging. In Swati, Mercury sharpens detachment. They're often in the role of communicator, advisor, or observer rather than participant. If Mercury is in the 10th, this becomes a polished public skill. They manage image and information expertly, appearing composed and insightful, even if inwardly unengaged. If Saturn is in the 4th or 10th house, dissociation becomes protective and patterned. These natives are often emotionally reserved, having learned to disconnect from feeling in favor of responsibility or structure. In Swati, Saturn grounds Rahu's air, but also builds internal walls. They may stay in their head, act with control, and avoid vulnerability. If Saturn is in the 10th, this manifests as stoicism in public. They lead through presence, not emotion, often appearing self-contained or distant. If Jupiter is in the 1st or 5th house, the experience can become associated through meaning. These individuals immerse in experience when it aligns with wisdom, purpose, or belief. In Swati, Jupiter helps stabilize the wind. They are more likely to feel deeply when the experience connects to growth or insight. If Jupiter is in the 10th, this shows as public presence, rooted in value. They engage when they believe it matters. Swati's relationship with experience is like the wind, subtle, shifting, and often hovering just above the surface. They process life through motion and observation more than depth and immersion. Their evolution comes from learning when to land, when to be in the experience instead of circling around it. When balanced, Swati becomes a graceful presence, aware, responsive, and capable of deep connection when the winds within finally settle. Swati Nakshatra, approach. Matching versus mismatching. Some individuals operate with a matching mindset, seeking harmony, alignment, and agreement in thoughts, relationships, and systems. Others have a mismatching approach, naturally scanning for what's off, inconsistent, or out of place. Swati Nakshatra, ruled by Rahu, disruption, differentiation, and associated with Vayu, the god of wind, leans toward a mismatching approach. These natives are independent thinkers with a deep instinct to question, challenge, and reframe. They notice gaps in logic, inconsistencies in behavior, or systems that no longer serve, and often feel compelled to adjust, rewrite, or innovate. However, when they feel emotionally or socially safe, they can shift into matching mode, seeking balance, peace, and fluid agreement, especially in relational or diplomatic spaces. Planetary placements in the 3rd, 6th, and 10th houses reveal how this pattern plays out in thought and action. If Rahu is in the 1st or 3rd house, the mismatching tendency is strong and instinctive. These individuals question everything, beliefs, identities, traditions, and are often motivated by what doesn't fit. In Swati, Rahu's air nature makes them restless and analytical. They don't take things at face value and are quick to point out flaws or inefficiencies. If Rahu is in the 10th, they may challenge authority, disrupt industry norms, or carve out a unique path by refusing to conform to outdated standards. If Mercury is in the 3rd or 10th house, the mismatching becomes mental and verbal. These natives have a sharp, questioning mind that delights in examining contradictions and nuances. In Swati, Mercury refines this into articulate expression. They know how to critique with grace. If in the 10th, they are respected for their analytical thinking, able to spot loopholes, inefficiencies, or inconsistencies in communication, design, or structure. If Moon is in the 4th or 7th house, the approach may lean more toward matching, especially emotionally. These individuals tend to seek emotional resonance and relational harmony. In Swati, the Moon adds a need for smoothness. They notice mismatches, but may not speak up unless the dissonance is strong. If Moon is in the 10th, they often play the role of harmonizer in public. They adapt tone, message, and behavior to preserve peace or reputation. If Saturn is in the 6th or 10th house, mismatching becomes structured and purposeful. These individuals approach work, service, and systems with high standards. They identify flaws not to criticize, but to repair and refine. In Swati, Saturn brings focus to Rahu's wind. They're less scattered in their critique, more methodical. If Saturn is in the 10th, this becomes a hallmark of their professional identity. They are seen as precise, reliable, and discerning. If Jupiter is in the 3rd or 9th house, the approach leans toward matching through meaning. These natives look for patterns that align with wisdom, truth, or moral cohesion. In Swati, Jupiter helps them match ideas to bigger principles. Even if they notice mismatches, they prefer to reframe rather than reject. If Jupiter is in the 10th, their leadership is inclusive. They unify rather than divide, often elevating the conversation through vision and philosophy. Swati's approach is like the wind. It changes direction to find what's free, truthful, or out of sync. Their mismatching instinct isn't about conflict, it's about movement, adjustment, and insight. Their growth comes from learning when to challenge and when to harmonize, when disruption serves progress, and when matching brings peace. When balanced, Swati becomes the skilled negotiator and subtle reformer, able to detect what needs to shift and help it do so with intelligence, grace, and air-like agility. Swati Nakshatra, time experience, in time versus through time. Some individuals live in time, fully immersed in the present moment, emotionally responsive, and acting based on what's happening right now. Others live through time, tracking past patterns, anticipating future consequences, and pacing themselves across a larger arc. Swati Nakshatra, ruled by Rahu, movement expansion, and associated with Vayu, the god of wind, naturally leans toward an in-time orientation. These natives respond to shifts in energy, environment, and inspiration. They act when the wind moves them, not necessarily from long-term planning. However, their restlessness and search for meaning can gradually push them toward a through-time awareness, especially when responsibility, purpose, or grounding planetary placements shape their path. Whether they live reactively in the now or begin to move with intentional pacing depends on placements in the 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th houses. If Rahu is in the 1st or 7th house, the native is heavily in time, often reactive and fueled by immediate desire or identity exploration. These individuals are driven to become, act, or connect right now, even if the direction changes tomorrow. In Swati, this can create urgency. They chase transformation or validation in the moment. If Rahu is in the 10th, this urgency becomes external. They pursue career recognition or status without always mapping the long-term impact, learning to slow down only through experience. If Moon is in the 4th or 7th house, the time experience is emotionally in time. These natives feel through the moment, acting based on internal tides or relational energy. In Swati, the Moon adds sensitivity to the wind. They move when something feels right, even if it's not logical. If Moon is in the 10th, they may adjust their timing to public emotion or social dynamics, responding quickly to shifts in tone or expectations. If Mercury is in the 3rd or 10th house, the mindset starts to lean through time. These individuals process logically and are more likely to plan, structure, or schedule. In Swati, Mercury helps ground the air. They think ahead, reflect on what's been said or done, and use time more intentionally. If Mercury is in the 10th, this becomes a professional strength. They're known for strategy, communication, and timely execution. If Saturn is in the 6th or 10th house, the experience is deeply through time, often structured and patient. These natives don't rush. They move carefully with awareness of long-term consequences. In Swati, Saturn stabilizes Rahu's erratic wind. They learn to pace themselves, plan their growth, and delay gratification in favor of mastery. If Saturn is in the 10th, they rise slowly but steadily, often succeeding through consistency and endurance rather than speed. If Jupiter is in the 1st or 9th house, the time experience becomes through time with wisdom. These individuals act based on belief, meaning, and future alignment. In Swati, Jupiter expands their horizon. They may start off impulsive, but grow into thoughtful decision makers who consider their path's impact on self and others. If Jupiter is in the 10th, they become long-view professionals, invested in purpose-driven leadership and karmic timing. Swati's time experience is like wind across water, fluid, moment-driven, and often pulled in many directions. While naturally reactive and immediate, their growth lies in learning to ride the gusts with purpose, pausing when needed, aligning with deeper timing, and anchoring their choices to something lasting. When balanced, Swati becomes a graceful navigator of time, acting in the moment, but always with one eye on the broader horizon. Swati Nakshatra, primary interest motivation, people, activities, places, or things. Some individuals are primarily motivated by people, seeking connection, influence, or validation. Others are driven by activities, engaging in what stimulates their mind or fuels momentum. For some, places hold importance, environments that offer freedom, peace, or alignment. And others are drawn to things, tools, systems, or material objects that give them control or value. Swati Nakshatra, ruled by Rahu, desire, expansion, and associated with Vayu, the god of wind, is most often motivated by activities and places. These natives crave freedom, mental, emotional, and physical, and are fueled by what allows them to move, explore, learn, or shift direction. While their social nature can draw them toward people, true motivation is rarely interpersonal. It's usually about the space or action that allows their independence to flourish. Planetary placements in the 1st, 3rd, 6th, and 10th houses reveal where this motivational current flows most clearly. If Rahu is in the 1st or 3rd house, activities become the dominant driver. These individuals are constantly in motion, mentally, physically, or socially. In Swati, Rahu adds a restless urge to evolve. They are drawn to anything that stimulates growth or novelty. If Rahu is in the 10th, this drive becomes professional. They're motivated to achieve, transform, and be recognized through dynamic roles, especially those that allow for change, challenge, or reinvention. If Mercury is in the 3rd or 6th house, the native is also activity-focused, especially in mental, verbal, or technical tasks. In Swati, Mercury adds curiosity and versatility. They're motivated by writing, speaking, problem-solving, and adaptive thinking. If Mercury is in the 10th, this becomes their public strength. They're drawn to work that requires communication, quick thinking, or learning on the move. If Moon is in the 4th or 7th house, people become a more central motivator, especially emotionally or relationally. These natives may not initiate connection, but they feel anchored by the presence and feedback of others. In Swati, the Moon softens Rahu's airiness. They may crave social harmony or emotional validation. If Moon is in the 10th, they're motivated to maintain public approval, emotional poise, or nurturing leadership in their professional role. If Venus or Jupiter is in the 4th or 9th house, places become important, particularly those that support freedom, learning, or peace. These individuals are drawn to calm, beautiful, or sacred spaces. In Swati, this adds an aesthetic or spiritual layer to their movement. They may be motivated by travel, relocation, or finding environments that reflect their values. If either planet is in the 10th, they often seek workplaces that align with their ethics, comfort, or expansive vision. If Saturn is in the 6th or 10th house, things such as systems, tools, and tangible outcomes become more central. These natives are motivated by order, structure, and the mastery of skill or responsibility. In Swati, Saturn disciplines Rahu's wind. They may start off scattered, but become motivated by sustainability, credibility, or long-term success. If Saturn is in the 10th, they're career-focused, driven to build something real, respected, and durable. Swati's core motivation is to move freely and meaningfully, whether through work, ideas, environments, or self-expression. They are drawn to that which allows exploration, adaptability, and expansion. Their growth lies in learning to distinguish freedom from avoidance and in using their mobility to evolve, not escape. When aligned, Swati becomes the inspired traveler, carried not just by wind, but by purpose, always seeking, learning, and shaping the world around them through choice, change, and clarity.